the generative part of AEO is really interesting. And that's what's truly the game changer, because I think it's going to change the way SEOs and content marketers think about what content to build.
Welcome to Search Party. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Caroline Gilbert. She is the Director of Content and Editorial at Angie, a company we're all familiar with, I think. She leads a 50-plus person team managing, 10,000 pieces of content or something like that. It's crazy. And she draws on over a decade of experience in the industry with work published in outlets like Real Simple and Virginia Living magazine. Before joining Angie, she rose through the ranks at Siege Media, an SEO-focused content marketing agency, where she was instrumental in growing the team of about 8 people to nearly 90. Caroline, I'm so happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Amanda. Really excited to be here.
I feel like a lot of our experience aligns, but your experience at Angie, that, I didn't think I knew those scaling, how much you scaled at the agency and at Angie. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, my work and my focus has been kind of at the intersection of search, content, and then user intent. And so what's been really fun is how search has allowed me to scale, especially during the now AI. It's only amplified that ability to scale. So yeah, we run a very well-oiled content engine and growth engine here at Angie.
Yeah, it's super impressive. So I'm really glad to have you here. We're going to get into some interesting SEO misconceptions, but before we do that, we like to play Two Truths and a Lie. So what do you have for me, Caroline?
My 2 truths and a lie are, I have met a famous musician, I have met a NASA astronaut, and I have met a Olympian.
Ooh, this is fun. Okay. I'm going to say the musician is fake.
Not true. I have met Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20 in a random lobby at Viacom offices in New York City when I was early in my PR career. And that's a whole separate story of how that run-in happened, but it's one of my favorite celebrity titles.
Did you chat, or was it just you saw him and
Yeah,
moved on?
I was at the Viacom security desk checking in, and he was right behind me also checking in with his little small team and entourage, and we just had a really brief chat, and it was slowly dawning on me that this
you
is
didn't know at first?
this is Rob Thomas, and he had the Matchbox 20 tattoo on the inside of his forearm, so I was like, it's him.
That is incredible. I love that you weren't even, because out of context, I don't know that I would immediately recognize him. I know what he looks like, but it's so weird to see somebody just in your everyday and then be like, wait a second, I'm talking to the lead singer of Matchbox.
Exactly. It was great.
Okay, so which one was fake? The astronaut or the Olympian?
The Olympian is fake. I'm a huge beach volleyball player, so I've gone to beach volleyball events, and beach volleyball Olympians have played at it, but I've never actually met them. I've just seen them do their sport. And then I know a NASA astronaut. My best friend from childhood is an astronaut, and she just got back from space earlier this year. So with all the news that's happening with Artemis launch this week, it just felt I'm very in tune with what's going on.
To get that kind of excitement again over a launch, it was really cool. But yeah, to know an astronaut, I'm sure she has some fascinating stories.
Yeah, she's my cool card that I tend to put around at parties. I am not cool, but my friend is very cool.
That's fun. Thanks for playing that. So, Caroline, what did you bring to the party today?
So I am bringing to the party SEO best practices that I actually think are hurting your content and maybe also even hurting your SEO strategy.
Okay, I like this. This is spicy. So, let's just walk through them then. What's the first best practice that you think is detrimental potentially?
Well, I wanted to start obviously with one around AI because it is so disruptive to our industry right now. And I've spent a lot of time at Angie. I should say, first and foremost, for those who are not familiar with Angie, we have a 30-plus year history, formerly Angie's List. And we are known for, we're a tech marketplace that connects homeowners to home service pros. So you look around your house, any project that you need done, repairing a sink, mowing your lawn, cleaning your house, painting a room, etc. you can come to Angie and find a local pro in your area to do that project. But going back to kind of the first concept, I see across LinkedIn, Slack communities, general like buzz when it comes to AI and the disruption is that SEOs and content marketers alike are skeptic about the AI performance. And I think a root piece of feedback that I consistently see is people just kind of blanket saying like, well, AI content isn't trustworthy. People don't trust it or they don't think it's credible. And therefore we should like not generate content using AI. We should not generate it for search. We should not generate it for other channels. And my belief is that this is a little outdated and oversimplified if you're still thinking that way. I think there's very credible research out there, even from institutes such as Pew, that have done deeper dives to show that users and people browsing the web really don't have much concern over AI content so long as it's useful and credible and solves somebody's problem quickly. I think content has the risk of being discredited by humans and AI alike. Like you can give a writing prompt to 5 different writers and they'll all kind of execute it differently. And some of those first drafts may come back and not be useful, credible, or solve the problem quickly. The same way, the same risk can happen in AI. You give it a poor prompt or you don't have the right controls in place and it will spit out garbage. So I think the kind of oversimplification of people don't trust AI content, don't use AI to produce this content, Google's going to penalize AI content. I think that's a little bogus. I mean, Google has fully embraced AI on their own search result. Why would they hold brands to a different standard?
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic because it just has nuance, right? Like, there are so many types of information that I truly do not care who or how it came together as long as it's true and accurate. And I think a lot of the research around AI trust and stuff like the Pew Research Center's research, I think it's specifically about AI overviews, right? And, like, AI overviews to me are fascinating because on the one hand, some people are, like, very repelled by them, but on the other hand, so many people use them still. Like, even if they don't fully trust it, they still use it. And because we do value that accessibility, that quickness of getting that information, and if it's not very high stakes, it's like, "Sure, I'll just take this, at face value." So, yeah, I think that it's so much more nuanced than yeah, I guess in this case, the best practice we're kind of picking at is, like, never use AI to write content, which is not it's just way too oversimplistic, right?
Yeah, and I think there's also, you'll probably hear me make this point throughout our discussion of a lot of like blanket best practices. Ultimately, I recommend people try and test it themselves with their own brand, within their own customer base, within their own team, because you might end up finding out that you get very different results. So, for example, we when we started creating AI first content, we partnered with our user research team here at Angie, and we interviewed actual customers and actual users of our site and had them, you know, engage with AI overview. We had them engage with our AI first content, and we got actual qualitative data back from users that told us, this is useful for me. I don't have many concerns here. How am I using AI overview to make an informed decision about my home? Things like that. Which, if we had just gone with, maybe what the internet or what our industry was saying at that point in time, we might have made a very different decision. And we wouldn't have made a decision based on real user feedback, which I think is so important and increasingly important in our industry.
Yeah, that's such a good point where it's always about your particular
Yeah.
audience. And that's why there is no overall SEO playbook that every industry can apply. It's like, here are some things, like you were saying, to try. Like, here's a thesis to test, but you might find that your particular audience has a completely different view on something. Okay, so that's a great one. AI is always the elephant in the room. What's another best practice that you think is we shouldn't take at face value?
further elaborating on kind of the AI lens, I've seen also a lot of chatter around AEO and SEO, and are they the same? And a lot of people are saying like, oh, this is the same. This is the exact same thing. We don't. You're also hearing a lot of news about divestment from SEO teams to invest instead in AEO, and sometimes that has like real implications like layoffs and job loss and things like that too, which is quite serious. I would say if you're an SEO or a content person specializing in SEO and you're seeing this chatter, I would I would caution against just blanket saying these two channels are the same. I think a clear line in the sand for me and what I've been trying to communicate amongst my team is SEO is discoverability in Google and trying to rank in search results. AEO, or answer engine optimization, is being the answer. Like, how can we make sure our brand is part of the answer when users are trying to ask a question?
Yeah, because people define that differently just in the way that you appear. Like, visibility in LLMs has a wide range
So
of
different and
possibility.
so rapidly changing too. And I think there's another important thing that like the skill set is similar. So I think when we're saying AEO and SEO are the same, maybe what some people are trying to communicate is the basic skill set that SEOs have actually translate very nicely to AEO, in terms of understanding of content, understanding of content optimization, understanding of user search intent. Like that is all very valid. But I think the ways in which your brand shows up, the general user experience, and then also how that translates to user behavior is quite different. I think sometimes like preparation is a form of procrastination. And so trying to like prepare.
That's too real in my daily life.
And so I think like trying to build like a whole new playbook and best practice from scratch for AEO right at the start is just unrealistic. The landscape is changing too rapidly. Your SEO playbook has been tested over probably a decade. Like we just don't have that time to have that mature of a playbook right now as we're in this point in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, this debate has been all over LinkedIn articles, etcetera, and again, it's just more nuanced than, like, the bigger claims that are made. Like, I would argue that saying AEO and SEO are the same is false, and also that they're completely different is false. It's somewhere in the middle, and I know that that's, like, we don't want it to be that way. I hate the in between and the ambiguity, the gray areas of everything, You'd rather it just be, like, very straightforward, but it certainly feels like one of those things that, a lot of like you were saying, the fundamentals of SEO still apply, and there's just, like, tweaks you have to make specifically, just like anything else, like, we have all these gatekeepers, Google's one of them, and now we have more, and they have their nuances, they have their specific things that we have to think about, and can you talk a little bit more about, like you were saying, the talk about a little bit more about that difference? Because you had sort of mentioned, like, the way that users interact with that kind of stuff, or, like, I'd like to hear your perspective
Yeah,
on
well, I
that.
think that the generative part of AEO is really interesting, and that's what's truly the game changer. Otherwise, like, sure, the way they phrase answers and responses in AEO is much more conversational, much longer form than a simple like list of links and a few other SERP features like in traditional Google. But I think the generative part is what's really interesting and disruptive to our industry because I think it's going to change the way SEOs and content marketers think about what content to build
Yeah.
and own on the site. For example, if, in my world, uh, cost guides are really big, it's an obvious question before somebody hires a pro and starts a home project is how much is this project going to cost and help with general budgeting so that they can compare quotes, make a confident decision, and then move forward with their project. For a long time, we have been thinking about calculators and other features to help our cost data be more personalized and assist with that budgeting. But also that was before ChatGPT existed, and you could generate that content yourself and put in things like your personal preferences, your material selections, your local area, and get that answer immediately. And granted, there's probably concerns around accuracy, and it's maybe not a very precise quote. You're still going to need to talk to a home service professional to get what the final cost is going to be. But for budgeting and general learning and preparation, that seems like a realistic avenue to go in. So that sort of reframes how we think about, all right, well, we have this proprietary cost content that our cost data has been built over many years from real homeowners using real Angie Pros for their projects. So we have the credibility of our cost data, but how it's presented, how it's used by our customers, I think is going to start changing because they are now being influenced by these other tools on how to budget their home projects. So I think that's the real part of like how's the generative part of AI search start to change user behavior, and then change that behavior change is going to translate to brands. Okay, well, I'm able to do this over here. Why can't you do it for me over there?
I also think it's interesting from the SEO content side. It's like we've always thought about pages, like articles, like full, and it's not even that anymore, right? It's like it's those bits of information, and we have to just completely think differently now as that user behavior changes. Yeah, it's so interesting. Anyway, we can probably spend a whole episode talking about that. But what's another misconception that we can get into?
Sure. You kind of just touched on it with like pages and articles, but another misconception that I've been slowly debunking, especially at my time at Angie, is this idea that like long form content always wins. Like the more the more complex and the deeper your content goes, the answering the follow up question that a user might have is better. And for a really long time, we saw that worked out. We saw that the deeper you went into a topic, the more insights you added, the more education you added would boost rankings. The purest, cleanest example of that is just like higher word count equals higher ranking. Like I remember, well, let's say 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was doing this, that was basically the best practice was like, okay, how can we like enrich this article with more copy to make it more comprehensive? But really, we're just like adding words. And so I think I've been testing over time. Again, use your own data, run your own tests, where we have taken the time to significantly cut portions of content down and simplify and make it more skimmable for users. And we've seen zero negative impact to rankings and visits as a result of that change. Because I think what we're doing is we're getting the answer to the user a lot faster. We are more efficient in our content production because less words you have to write, less words you have to edit, sooner to publish. We're getting that information a lot faster out into the ecosystem. And then, we have great like tool sets like heat mapping and things like that to understand, well, once a user like gets past this point of an article, they're not really like 50% of our users aren't reading past this line. So why are we investing so much time and energy on this bottom half of real estate that not as many people are going to see and get to? And I think that just further reinforces what we were talking about earlier of AI. I mean, that also seems to be the direction people or that channel is going in terms of what content it wants to favor. It's like well structured, scannable, really closely tied to that user intent. I think there are times when a topic does require depth, but it needs to be really well structured and clear of what the user is reading from one section to the next.
Yeah, it all goes back to intent, like you said. I mean, even before all the AIs of it all, it was like, do you need the 4,000 word blog post for like what is blank? It was like that's not what people are looking for when they search that. You need it to be straightforward, and then if they want to dive in more, they can go to the next piece, right? But yeah, it was a big. You're right, like, especially a certain number of years ago, it was like everybody thought we had to write the comprehensive version of every single, keyword you wanted to go after. But yeah, I think the structuring of it, with LLMs, it's always been a thing because you want it to be skimmable, but now it has real ramifications in terms of you, like, appearing at all. So, it is interesting. Okay, I think you have one more.
I would say the last sort of misconception I have is very similar to the one I just mentioned around content depth. There's also a constant debate in our industry around quality versus quantity. And I don't think there's a silver bullet there. I also think those two categories are very subjective. Like what one person thinks is high quality, another person might not agree with. And similarly, what one person might think is high quantity and high volume, another person might not agree with. So this idea that like, oh, we just have to churn out a ton of pages, especially again, LLMs being very answer first, wanting to very easily be able to skim content. I think ultimately the focus should be on where's the content most useful in your industry and for your audience. And that's where the volume should go. But we've made a very concerted effort at Angie to like pull back, for example, on certain topics and search intents that are just way more up funnel in the consideration phase. I mean, you think about home improvement, you can go down really like long rabbit holes around educating people about their home. And that's great. It's great that people have a lot of questions about their home, but where is Angie going to be the most valuable to help people close that gap from learning about your home to hiring a professional?
Yeah, you don't hear this talked about with the volume stuff of, like, what are we talking about when we say volume? Like, just overall a lot of blog posts? Like, or what does that mean? And so you're basically proposing, like, outside of just, like, I need a large volume of content, it's like where it's that prioritization exercise of doing inventory of everything that exists on your site and, like, where's the need to go maybe a little more in depth or have a little bit more of that, comprehensive approach.
Yeah, and like aligning it again back to the user search intent, which I think SEOs and SEO based content marketers are so good at, is like that initial keyword research, even though honestly this should be another myth, but I feel like keyword research is getting really disrupted right now. Um, but very good at understanding where the volume is and like we should tie our value to that volume, but also understand that volume is not the only metric. You should be looking at downstream impact when it comes to conversions and actual funnel entry and revenue. I throw out an example of my team. Whenever a new hire starts on my team, for example, is if you were to do keyword research in for outdoors, which is a big category within our portfolio of home service jobs. Again, everything from landscaping to lawn mowing to tree trimming, etc. If you look at within the general keyword landscape of outdoors, gardening is a hugely searched topic. There are things like, people wanting to how to grow rose bushes or how to plant this type of tree or how to mulch your yard. But when you dig deeper within the like gardening search intent, it's mostly homeowners who want to learn how to garden as a hobby for themselves.
Yes,
They
right.
sometimes, not always, but sometimes they do need to hire a pro. For example, I'm not going to plant an 8 foot tall oak tree in my yard by myself. Like, I need a professional to do that. But if it's just about planting some tulips, most homeowners aren't maybe going to hire a pro for that. They can go to their local store or their nursery, bring some home, trial and error, and figure that out for themselves. So if we were just kind of blanket thinking, well, outdoors, that's a category, is really important to our business. We see this search volume here. Let's create a lot of gardening content to address those customers. I think what we'd find out is we'd churn out a large volume, probably in the hundreds of articles, educational content around gardening. And conversion and revenue would probably be pretty flat or low compared to other categories in our business, like remodeling or plumbing or HVAC.
Well, it kinda gets at the whole, like, top of the funnel argument now, because I think that was, like, the existential question of once LLMs started answering the straightforward questions, which a lot of that top of the funnel stuff was, not all of it, but like you were saying, it's or at least it's tangential to what you do. Like, yeah, like planting roses, it's like, okay, well, if somebody doesn't, like, need somebody to come in and plant the rose bush for them, what this is all kind of, like, supplementary. And it has kinda made everybody be like, "Hmm, like, where if we're going to do that type of content, where does it make sense to do it?"
Right, exactly. Whereas, categories for us, such as electrical or plumbing or HVAC, these are highly technical categories. Oftentimes, homeowners do not have the skill set to do these types of categories. Oftentimes, you're at risk of, permitting requirements, licensing requirements, or voiding warranties on your home or damaging your home permanently. And so, the same homeowner who feels really confident in their gardening project could have a very low confidence on repairing their like AC unit. So it's even like a mindset shift within the same person that's doing searches.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting way of framing it because I always say people should start at, like, the bottom of the funnel and make sure that you have that solidified before you kinda, like, work your way up the customer journey, but it felt again, going back to, like, it feels too simple to be like, "We don't need that stuff anymore," right? But it has changed, like, I think we can all recognize that, we see what's happening with traffic. So I really like that way of looking at it to try to prioritize.
Yeah, and your earlier point about, like, Google is taking away so many clicks to these up funnel searches, it only further reinforces of like, well, we don't need to make a ton of, like, complimentary or supportive content. I know that was a really big thing when it came to, even, like, the sort of hub and spoke models of like, well, the more content, the more spokes you create that supports the hub, that can only just be better because Google will crawl that and see you as authoritative for that hub topic because it's like, oh, look at all of what they've put out around XYZ. And maybe Google still thinks and crawls that way, but it's not translating the clicks. Nobody's actually getting to your website. So
It's like, you can still do that, but do all these other things first, right? I think that's kind of like to me, it just feels like the priority shifted. Um, yeah, I agree. It's like it probably still doesn't hurt to have all that extra stuff, but is it at the expense of things that would be better for like closer aligned with your customers?
exactly.
I think that's the key
Yep.
part. Awesome. Thank you for walking through those. I think we could probably do this on an annual basis, a quarterly basis with the way that things are going. Um, but so for our gossip corner segment, there was a Semrush study that came out recently that I wanted to share with you really quick because it felt aligned with some of the things you were talking about. And when I saw this, like, does AI content rank well in search? So we're talking about like, okay, how do we get a like a data-driven way of proving or disproving, this kind of thing? And as usual, there's nuance, right? Like 87% of SEO teams report that their content's either fully created by humans or heavily led by humans. So, okay, still a lot of that human created content. But 72% of SEOs still say that the AI content ranks just as well as the human content, which is interesting. That's a pretty good majority here of SEO content creators saying that. What was interesting to me about this was that the analysis showed that the first position was more likely to be human written. I would imagine that comes down to the type of query because
Yeah, I imagine it comes down to the type of query, and I imagine it just comes down also to this is still a type of content and a process and a technology that is still very much in its infancy. I mean, let's be
yeah.
generous. Like I started poking into AI first content about a year ago. If I look at the calendar, like 12 months ago. And so let's say I'm not the first to do it. Let's say we've been doing it for more like 14, 16 months. I don't think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, people were doing this as much. So most brands and most SEOs are probably within the first year-ish, some more like 6 months of utilizing this technology. So we also just don't have like the timeline and the amount of content out there yet live in the world to know, oh, this, AI and human first are better or worse, or how to pit them against each other. We have decades of human first content on the
That's
web.
true.
We have
That's true.
only maybe one-ish year of AI first content on the web.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be something to see, like, as it develops. I'll drop the link in the show notes. It's an interesting breakdown, and I think continues to add to the nuance of the conversation. That's my word of the day apparently for this conversation is nuance.
That's my
It's
favorite
like
word too, because yeah, I just feel like, you know, I hope what people take away is that it's good to listen to best practices. It's good to listen to the industry. But if somebody is making kind of a blanket statement, you kind of need to more rigorously test it against your own audience and your own strategy first before you can really adopt it as your own.
yeah, it's like think of it as a theory that you have to prove or disprove for your own purposes, right? Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. If somebody wants to follow your research, your insights, your takeaways, your content, where can they find you?
I'm really only on LinkedIn. I'm a bit of an old lady, so find me there, connect with me there. I'm happy to chat anytime. And yeah, this was really fun, Amanda. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. And thank you all so much for listening. If you want an invite to the after party, sign up for our newsletter. That's where we drop exclusive behind the scenes tidbits and where guests answer our spicy question of the month. What is a popular SEO or AI visibility tactic you think people are overhyping? Until next time, keep learning, keep testing, and keep showing up.